All right, today we're going to dive into the cosmology of David Weiss, who you might know as Flat Earth Dave. We're using a recent interview as our guide to break down the core ideas of his worldview, so let's just get right into it.
So the entire framework that Weiss presents is really built on this one pretty provocative idea. It's captured in this quote from the former CIA director, William Casey. The whole premise is that a deception so huge it could cover everything isn't just a possibility, it's actually the goal. And that really sets the stage for questioning our most basic beliefs about the world around us.
So where does someone even start with this kind of questioning? Well, according to the source, it all begins with these simple, observable cracks in the reality we've all been taught. You know, those moments where what you see with your own two eyes just doesn't quite line up with what science says you should be seeing.
The argument kicks off with a really simple observation. According to the source, the math for a globe Earth is pretty clear. Over a 10-mile distance, there should be about 66 feet of curvature. That's more than enough to completely hide the opposite shore of a big lake. But the claim is that with today's cameras, you can zoom right in and see straight across, clear as day. This visible difference is held up as the very first piece of evidence that, hey, maybe something's not quite right with the model we've been given.
And that leads to a really crucial question, right? If the evidence against the globe is supposedly this easy to see, why does pretty much everyone on the planet believe in it? The source argues the answer has nothing to do with physics. It's all about psychology.
So this brings us to the next layer of the argument. This part unpacks how, according to Weiss, the belief in a globe is basically installed in us and then fiercely defended through a lifetime of psychological conditioning.
The source calls it a layer cake of lies. It starts with our parents who just teach us what they were taught. Then that gets reinforced by school and religion. After that, it's solidified by all our entertainment, movies, TV, the news, and finally, it's backed up by other systems of authority. Each layer just builds on top of the last one until you've got this deeply, deeply ingrained worldview.
Okay, so here's the kicker. It's all about when we learn this stuff. The source claims that because we learn the Earth is a globe when we're about 5 years old, any challenge to that idea when we're adults triggers this incredibly defensive reaction. Our ego is completely tied to that foundational belief. So we kind of revert to that 5-year-old mindset. We're not arguing with logic. We're defending a core piece of our identity based on what an authority figure told us was true.
All right, so moving beyond what we can see and the psychology behind it, the source points to another area that's apparently full of inconsistencies: aviation. The claim is that the paths planes fly and the math pilots use just don't add up on a globe.
The source gives this specific story from a pilot. He was flying from North Dakota down to Vegas and set his course heading to 223 degrees. But over the course of the flight, the autopilot gradually adjusted the heading to 215 degrees. Now, on a globe, that should be a straight line. This little, unexplained turn is presented as a major clue.
And this slide shows the proposed explanation for that. On a flat Earth map, north is the very center. South is just any direction moving away from that center. But east and west, they aren't straight lines. They're actually concentric circles. What that means is, to fly a direct path between two places like North Dakota and Vegas, a plane would have to constantly adjust its compass heading, which is exactly what that pilot said he saw happen.
And here's another claim. When a pilot starts their descent from about 125 miles out, they use calculations based on flat plane trigonometry. But over that kind of distance on a globe, there should be 2 miles of curvature to account for. The argument is, if pilots didn't factor that in, they'd end up 2 miles too high. And since planes land perfectly every time, the source concludes they must be operating on a flat plane to begin with.
So this, of course, begs the next big question. If these anomalies in our world are real, who in the world would pull off such a massive cover-up? And what for? This is where the whole theory shifts from the physical world to the metaphysical.
The source proposes that the ultimate reason for all this deception isn't about money or earthly power. It's about something way more sinister, a kind of cosmic control system that's designed to literally harvest human energy. And that brings us to this concept of loosh. According to the source, loosh is a term for the emotional energy that's created by human suffering, by fear, by division. The whole motivation for hiding the true nature of our world is to keep humanity stuck in this state of conflict and spiritual confusion, which creates this loosh for, non-human entities to feed on.
Now, to back up this conspiratorial layer, the source points to the supposed ideological founders of NASA. It claims that figures like Wernher von Braun, L. Ron Hubbard, and Aleister Crowley all described as occultists, were actually foundational to the space program. And this is presented as evidence that NASA's mission was never really scientific, but was spiritual and deceptive right from the very beginning.
Okay, so if the globe model is a lie, and the space program is part of the deception, what's the alternative? This final part of the explainer lays out the completely different cosmology that's proposed instead.
The source claims that our own technology has actually outpaced the official story. So while NASA gives us these amazing, detailed pictures of planets like Saturn, what people are supposedly seeing through their own high-powered telescopes aren't solid worlds at all. Instead, they're seeing these luminous, geometric patterns of light, something more like the ancient description of a wheel within a wheel.
So this leads to a totally different model of the cosmos. In this view, we live on a stationary, enclosed plane. The planets aren't physical places you can go to, they're wandering stars that are named after gods. And the stars themselves, they aren't distant suns. They're considered to be angelic beings, or maybe even the real home of our souls.
And the philosophical idea that holds all of this together is captured in this quote. The idea is that we are actually powerful spiritual beings who are just having a temporary human experience. It's like we're in a divine video game. Hiding our true nature and our real location is the key to making that game feel real and to generating the emotional energy, that loosh, that the whole system runs on.
And that really brings us to the final takeaway from all this. If, as the source argues, our own thoughts and beliefs are what actually shape our experience of reality, then maybe the most important question isn't whether the Earth is flat or a globe. Maybe the real question is, what reality are we consciously or even unconsciously choosing to create and accept as true for ourselves?